This is Tech Me As I Am, a video series and podcast where self-love is shaking up the status quo of corporate America. We're diving into authentic stories that are creating space for you to feel seen, be vulnerable, and succeed working in the everyday. So let's be real, let's be different, and let's get courageous, y'all.
Hi, this is Sherrita Dorsey. I'm so excited to be here on the set of Tech Me As I Am. We are talking today about the amazing emergence of AI in healthcare and leadership, and how leadership is built through adversity. And so I look forward to sharing my journey and also the importance of what I do every day and what all of you will do every day to improve the lives of so many and what in our journey to improve healthcare.
Welcome to Tech Me As I Am, the podcast and video series bringing self-love to corporate America. And the only thing that we care about is you being true to your most authentic self. So let's be real, let's be different, and let's get courageous. In today's episode, we have a guest that is near and dear to my heart. She is a VP of Customer Engagement at Novartis. The episode that we're going to be doing today is a pharma leader's self-care love journey and figuring out how she has navigated the success that she's had and really understand where she's going and what she wants to do. So Sherrita Dorsey, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of being anywhere else.
I know. I feel very appreciative and thankful.
Absolutely.
And I'm really, really excited to get everyone to start understanding your journey. Talk to us a little bit about what got you into pharma, or just your early beginnings.
Yeah, I would say I grew up in a household with a mother who was a nurse in Galveston, Texas, so not far from here in Houston. I'm from Afrotech. And she was a nurse. I saw her every day, really dedicated and committed to patients. She took my sister and I to a cadaver lab while she was in school, and she was doing a clinical, and I knew right away I wanted to be in healthcare. And so as a young woman, young girl, I was actually exposed to the importance of healthcare and to saving lives.
I love that. And mommy bringing you along with the journey and
Mommy
taking
brought
you.
us. Yeah.
And what do you think that did for you as it planted a seed for you? Like, what was it, just seeing your mom go and just say, hey, I want to show you guys what the future could look like? What was it that sparked that interest?
You know, it's interesting because my mother, I was raised in a single home, such as 50% of African families are led by single moms. And but I had a very tight-knit family, raised by a lot of strong Black women. And, you know, they all were very strong, but we had hypertension. My grandmother battled depression. Kidney disease was very prevalent in our home. And so I heard early on and observed, I was very observant even as a child, just the struggles of growing up in a lower socioeconomic home, but with a strong, loving family.
Yeah.
I never felt as though I was lacking, but I knew that without health, you had nothing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that is something I feel like a lot of us deal with in our community.
Yeah.
Is health, and health being not just physical, but mental as well.
Correct.
Why we're here. And, you know, making a pathway forward for other people to come after you in this space.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're doing it. You're an RN, you have your credentials for doing that. As you continued moving forward to kind of help that narrative, what do you think fueled you to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, listen, sometimes it'll sound like a tragic story, but I think what fueled me was the desire to be able to sustain and to support and to provide a future for myself. I grew up, my mother's first husband was very abusive, and so grew up in this environment where we were always running, right? I always felt like we were running away. We were trying to conserve and, hold back within the home. So whenever I could rebel and get out and just be me, I was unapologetically me. And so I think for me, that drive, that desire, and that comfort with being different. Um, but it did initially start off, my drive was really sparked in the need for independence. So you take that coupled with um, watching my mother, admiring her, having my family who were strong. My aunt was one of the first. Um, she was a truancy officer in Galveston. She has a street named after her, but very strong women who were not apologetic for being that, and they role modeled that for me, which gave me permission to be that. But it was coupled and layered with, as many homes, we don't talk about it, but many homes have some level of traumatic experience as we grow up, and that does shape you. And we can talk a little bit about that, but as I've gotten older and I realized that now I'm more secure in myself and in my career, I've lately explored what is this thing about this desire to be so independent, this thing to be so driven to where you don't know how to turn it off and give yourself the self-love and self-care. And through biofeedback and talking to other women, I've been able to now, in my older age, prime age, my fabulous age, and experience and wisdom, to be able to understand how previous traumatic experience drove my success. But there's always some ashes left from the fire.
So I appreciate you talking with us and going deep with us, because I think one of the key things we need to understand as a community, as a people, is, the traumas. You had said, you had gone through a lot of traumatic experiences, but that didn't stop you
No.
from getting where you are today.
No.
A VP at a pharmaceutical
Yes.
company, making
Yes.
the drugs and the things that we need
Yes.
to go to the hospitals and get help.
Yes.
Going and being, first to be an innovation, creating space for us to be able to, know we have somebody in these rooms to make a difference and educate us. Being in the rooms where a lot of us are not, it really is, it's powerful.
Yeah. I can tell you, it's not been this easy journey, right? Corporate America does bring a level of which mask do you want to wear today, and most of the times when I choose not to wear a mask is where I am right now in life. There are implications that come with that, right? And right now I'm on this mission to really explore and reconnect with my passion and my purpose. I think along the journey, I've always been connected with that. People have felt the authenticity that I bring to the table, but that could be good and bad, right? But there's things that I just won't sacrifice. There's things I just won't give up. And my journey is very unique. It has led to me building out multiple billion-dollar brands. I built one of the most successful brands in the world, and I'm very honored with that. But I've also left a legacy of developing others. I've developed and promoted 21% of people. I believe in you lift as you climb. I believe that, and I know for a fact that, there's a 15% innovative revenue when companies deploy and they diversify and they bring people in who have different perspectives. And I know if we're not in the room, the real work will not be done. And it's so interesting that as we fight for our authenticity, and definitely after the election, the world was in awe and shock, and it was no surprise to me. That reality has been the reality that I've chosen to sit in the trenches and take the hits, but at the end of the day, be the role model for what excellence looks like.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't there, I don't think they would see it. But there is this shift now. I see it, I feel it, as it relates to where America is. And I feel that. And I always say women we need a true allyship. We've seen women really grow in healthcare. Women of color only make up, they were 7% representation of at the VP level. Only 7% of women were, maybe 2 years ago, were women of color. Now we're down to 5. So we're not, our numbers aren't getting better.
Yeah.
But the disease states and the patients that many of the launches that are coming out over the next couple of years are predominantly across the industry focused on communities of color. And so there's a business imperative that organizations understand. We not only, they need us.
Yeah.
They need us educated, empowered, thought about, and we need cultural competence. And that can best come from people who came from those communities,
right.
People who go back to those communities, and the organizations who get that right and allow us to leverage our insights and our authentic approaches without fear of retaliation or reprisal will be the companies that truly will win as we look at the future of healthcare.
Absolutely. And I think to your point, if we don't serve the communities in which we support, one, you're so far removed from them, you don't even understand, what they're going through, the logic that needs to happen in terms of making decisions, and even how to position yourself in the market to be able to have things resonate for those people. Especially when it comes to patient care. I think, it is a very big issue in our communities, the healthcare. To be honest, my mom, she came from the South, and, I always say when I would go to the South, like the food is seasoned. The food out here is seasoned.
We do believe in salt.
Oh, salt, man! I was like, dang, I'm gonna get high blood pressure in 3 days. You just been out here, like it's really, it is seasoned. There's a lot of sugar in the things that we have in the South too. Yeah. And my mom was one of those people that just loved her salts. She loved her sugars. But it translated to her developing diabetes later on down the line and having a lot of severe complications. And the information that she had available to her, was not as readily available, back then.
It's not.
Yeah. And so it's, I think it's, there's this very special place in my heart when it comes to the healthcare industry and how we think about healthcare and how we think about our health.
Yeah.
Because, our bodies are a temple.
Yeah.
You can't do anything if you don't take care of yourself, physically and mentally.
And some of those behaviors are rooted in the pain that people have had to endure over the years. And it's so funny when now you look at companies and you have now all of the treatments for weight management and also diabetes linked together. But, when patients were having gastric surgery, they always required patients to go in for a psych evaluation and a nutritional consult. And in the psych evaluation, patients were able to dig into and delve into their desire to what drives them to eat the way they eat. And some of it is instant gratification. Some of it is, while the world is not feeling well, I can come home and eat something that brings me joy. So there are multiple drivers, but at the end of the day, self-love, self-care, what I put into my body is a temple, how I see myself today and into the future also depicts some of those negative behaviors that are out there that are causing disease. And so when you start to look at even socioeconomically, you're starting to see more women of color have heart attacks, die at a younger age based on stress. And so they have the financial ability to pay for great foods and have a great lifestyle, but the mental component is also impacting our ability to give ourselves the health and the self-care and the love that we need in order to thrive. Physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So so your mom is a representation of pain, as well as the need for education within our communities that is not there. And I think we saw that from COVID. The communities, the rural communities and the communities of color were highlighted with health disparities. and the need for greater health equity. What we need to do as an industry.
I think you brought up a very valid and profound thing, which is, when we eat certain types of foods, for example, they're coping mechanisms. It comes back down to the psychology of it all, the mind, right? The mind will do what it does, but the body will follow what the mind tells it to do, right? And I think when we think about coping mechanisms and we think about the foods and the gratification that you get out of that, right? That was something that my mom did love. Like when she would go through things, she would eat, and she would eat. And that's something like we think about, everyone's got their own form or their vice in terms of getting through things. But what you put in your body is what you become. And we don't think about it in that time because we're just like, I just need to get through this day. I need to be able to do X, Y, Z, And then it translates later down the line where it's like you can't reverse some of those things that you've done.
You can, and genetically too, when you look at lipoprotein A, you start looking at some of the genetic markers that we have that are predominant in our race. Some of the genetic mutations that we have were the very things that when we were in other countries, or in Africa, we needed those markers to protect us from malaria and some of the other things. Our bodies have just what protected us in one environment is now something that's leading to some of the cardiovascular diseases that we see in patients. But the question is, do I know? And so how you eat and what you put in your body compounds the risk factors that you already have genetically. But it's so great to see the next evolution of where healthcare is going. My passion and my purpose is to ensure that our communities actually get those treatments and ensuring that they have the education to understand why they need them. So when you talk about access to healthcare, it's not just about financially accessing healthcare, but it's also about healthcare bias. Are my patients in some of these communities, are they even being made aware of the treatments that are out there? I can tell you, launching in the lupus space, the disease state predominantly impacts our community. But when you looked at clinical trials, the first clinical trials that the organization that I work for didn't have enough African Americans. You had to go back and do a separate study. So I would go to church and people would come and say, Sherrita, Miss Smith is dying of lupus. I thought, well, 13 years later, they still haven't heard about some of the treatments that have been out. And that really is, for me, concerning, right? Why don't these communities know about the treatments that are there? Why aren't their doctors offering those to them? So these are the things that when we look at moving forward, so patients aren't left behind in an innovation era, that we begin to peel back the onion on a little bit, because some of that is healthcare bias. Some of that is fear and distrust in the healthcare system from Tuskegee and some of the other clinical trials and things that were done. And some of it is just lack of education. And are we in the communities providing the level of education needed to support those communities? It's serious.
It is serious. It really is.
Oh, yeah.
Think about the emotional component of, like you said, fear, for example. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fear in the community, and there's a lot of fear. I mean, this is a natural, emotion that we all go through, but it can become this thing that becomes all-consuming.
Oh, yeah.
And it can become something that prevents us from being able to, make the change, go get the education, pushing ourselves to learn something different or do something different, and not really give us the opportunity to really succeed. Mm-hmm. And it can be very crippling, that fear.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to realize how much it is prevalent in our communities, even more so than I'd like to admit. Yes, fear does serve a purpose, but when you get consumed with it, it becomes something that's just paralyzing.
It is, yeah,
very paralyzing. And I don't know necessarily. I think therapy and pushing ourselves to learn how to love ourselves more and understand the mechanisms behind the emotions and why they show up so we can, operate in a certain type of way. But we need to understand ourselves better to be able to navigate these things, because we do take these feelings to work. We do take and try to get through life in, whatever way we possibly can, eating foods, doing things that help us get through the situation. We do take these things into work, and, it's hard sometimes. It really is, especially for people like my mom. It was really hard for her.
Yeah, no, it's painful. I think about my mother. My grandmother was severely depressed. This is before a lot of the antidepressants come out. It's, again, one of the things that runs in our family very heavily. So you have to make sure that you're always attuned to your feelings and what will spark and drive those depression moments. It's not just about taking medications, but yeah, I've seen it. I've seen, as a nurse practitioner, I mean, I've seen, and a nurse, I've seen, working at MD Anderson, a cancer center, just how your mental state can determine your outcome. Patients who came in with a very optimistic view on their treatments, I mean, I observed them do better, right? Because the stress, those patients who were so stressed, from an immune perspective, it just drained them. And, there's definitely some mental health support needed in our communities. And to say, just like we're addressing obesity and some of the things we're addressing now, where my mind goes, my body goes, and so there's some love and some attention that needs to go there for sure.
What do you think that that you could tell our audience?
Yeah.
That would be good advice for them to take away in terms of thinking about not only their health care, but even in the way that you've climbed the ladder to get where you're at today?
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy has always been just keep going and to really leverage the people around you. Let people see your light shine. I remember growing up, we would be told in our, growing up, my sister and I, we grew up together, and people, we spoke very proper, right? In the terms, my mother was, and my family was very strict on English. Everyone owns English. I expect you to speak it, right?
Mine too.
But we would get, oh, you don't speak, you speak white, or you're not speaking like everyone else. And we grew up in an environment where we were already empowered to be who we were, to talk how we talked. But that came with a sacrifice for sure. And so we learned early, just let our light shine. And we had the space to do that. I've had an amazing women around me that saw my light and wanted to foster and help it to shine brighter. I remember Miss Tate, who, a dear friend of mine, it was her mom. My mother had escaped from her abuser, and we went into our first house post that. And the neighbor on the opposite side of the block was a realtor. She had this giant house, and I loved her style. Her daughter and I became best friends. I just had lunch with her last week. She's now CEO of the largest domestic violence group in Texas. And her mother just put me under her wing, and she was so classy. So I learned my style from her, my mom's best friend. I'm a hodgepodge from excellent women around me. Who fed me. Miss Beasley, I was a school nurse in a really poor community when I got out of nursing school, and Miss Beasley would wear pearls every day. And she would drop knowledge to me all day long around being a woman of color and what sophistication should look like. And so I'm bits and pieces of that. When I got ready to go to South Africa to do the research in South Africa with the World Health Organization, the dean of my Prairie View A&M, where I went to an HBCU, told me, she said, don't be afraid to make the hard choices, because the worst thing that can happen is you would end up where you are today doing what you're doing. So take the leap, right? And so I'm a hodgepodge of those women. I embody them. They're within me. And so there's never an opportunity to stop and to quit, because their legacy lives on in me.
You.
And for that, I lift as I climb. And, you know, my legacy will be that for sure. On top of building billion-dollar,
on top of the billion-dollar brands.
On top of being an author, on top of being a real estate, you know, developer. I mean, all of those things. We are all of that.
Yeah.
As Black women, we embody all of those things.
Yeah.
And within the ashes comes the phoenix.
Girl, I was just saying that this other day. I was like, as we rise through the ashes, I mean, really though, like we do come through from a lot of trauma backgrounds. We come through all these things, but it does make us stronger.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think there's power in that to continue pushing forward. I really appreciate you being here. I got a couple of rapid fire questions.
Yeah, sure.
And what I'll do is ask you a couple. So whatever comes top of mind, just, you know, let us know so our guests can get a chance to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay. When you are ready to jam out and you're ready to get up and go on stage and be like, all right,
okay,
come in and deliver a fire speech. I'm about to go into this boardroom. I'm about to get in front of all these people to make sure they know who I am.
Absolutely. I already know.
What's that song?
I already know Eminem, Lose Yourself.
Is it?
You only got one shot, so make it count. And I love that song. And just the beat, dun, 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 you know, I hear it in my mind, you know. It's so funny in the home of Beyonce, and you know, everyone knows her. A winner never quits on themselves. But at the end of the day, you got one shot. And what you tell yourself when you get up there, and what you tell yourself when you're given the shot, is you maximize it. And so I love that. I love that song.
Okay. That's not the first time I heard that. That's a song for the time.
It hypes me. It just does.
It just made me want to get down like this and just start going like this.
Someone else may not admit to that, but Sherrita's gonna admit to that. Yeah.
I could get there with you real quick. Okay. Next question. Book of choice. When you need to pour into yourself or any type of read that you think is something that's been pivotal in your development, what would you say is a book or podcast or something that you've taken in?
I would say Iyanla Vanzant, Daily Meditations for Women of Color, because that's the book where I saw the quote that made me decide to go to South Africa. I was sitting in my living room, and I can't remember what day it was, because every day you have a different quote. But it gave reading that book at a very pivotal point in my life where I could have gone left or I could have gone right, and daily committing to feeding myself something positive, something encouraging. So I always start my day out with and go to bed with a spirit of gratitude, right? Because for the life that I've been given, it could not have been that outcome of where I am today. And so I'm grateful. I am grateful, and I am blessed, and I am honored to know that what I do every day is bigger than me. And that is what drives me. Now, that's sometimes a thing that people don't like about me, is that I'm so driven.
You know
but
what?
Not my problem.
It's not your problem. That's how they feel about themselves.
No,
it has nothing to do with you. That's projection, 100%. So,
but at the end of the day, the book will show.
Yeah,
the ledger will represent. The facts will speak. She was a leader that kept her purpose of helping patients at scale and developing the future of leaders to deliver that end game. So I'm grateful.
Yeah,
I'm grateful.
I think that's a beautiful legacy to leave behind.
Grateful.
As you should be. As you should be. We need influence like that in the world. We need more Sherritas in the world like you. So,
God, I need more Sherritas in the world. So,
well, thank you again for being on Tech Me As I Am. I'm grateful. I feel the gratitude just you being here
and
gracing us with your presence and helping people to understand a little bit more about you, but that they can be this too. You can be a VP of customer engagement at a pharmaceutical organization.
You can. And you know what, I think everyone has to understand that now. As I gave you the stats, we were at 7%, we're down to 5%. And in the current environment, we have to ensure that we understand the business imperative of why we have to create this inclusive environment. It is a business smart and savvy decision, and not just something that helps people to feel better.
Yeah.
They need us.
Look, couldn't have said it better myself. Couldn't have said it better myself. Right.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, thank you, everyone. Until next time, for tuning in with Tech Me As I Am. We stay courageous, stay being different, and stay being real.